Will Kobe give them one last gamer? Bryant on the move with the jumper. He got it! 58 points! And the Lakers lead!
Kobe!
Knicks down 3. Should the Bulls foul? No. Anthony for 3. Bang! That one goes down and the game is tied! In the hands of Anthony. Anthony for 3. Puts it in! Knicks by 1 with 8.2 remaining! James catches, puts up a 3. Won't go. Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining! Unbelievable.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Deep from 3. We were talking about this beforehand, fellas. It's MLB chaos everywhere, but we're going to try to center it back around to the NBA community. Gary's out here with one arm. Isaiah, who knows what he's coming out of with left field. Fellas, how are we feeling tonight?
I would like to clarify for all the basketball minds out there. I got this broken elbow from taking a charge in a pickup game 1-on-1. I would just like to tell you my level of commitment to the game. Yeah. I'm a Heat fan. We lead the league in charges. I just, mimic my favorite team. So, I might be hurt, but we're going to kick some butt in this draft here.
It was right after Gary set a pick for me, and obviously I drained it from 3. It was a great game, Gary, but I'm sorry you went down, man.
Oh, man, I was out too. I, saw spots. It was bad.
Wait, I didn't ask you this. Did your team at least, win, or did the game?
It was a 1-on-1. It was me versus my old roommate, and I on the ground couldn't feel my arm. Thought I could just walk it off, and then 6 hours later I was in the emergency room. But we're all good now.
That's what matters.
Well, fellas, we have a ton to catch up to. Haven't had an episode in a couple of weeks now, so we got to go through the house cleaning, of course, of James Harden signing his extension, Monty Williams, multi-year extension, Zion Williamson, maximum rookie extension. We're at Draymond Green now wants an extension as well, and then we're going to bring it all around back full circle as we do our second segment. Last time was a whole lot of fun. And this time we're going to be doing international players. We're going to be doing a 3-person draft, trying to build the best starting lineup, trying to draft the teams that most resemble the team that we want to build. Gary mentioned it best. Sometimes you want to go for that winning lineup, but you also just want to go for the players that you grew up watching, the players that you idolize to a degree, right?
Oh, yeah. I think the main point of this is to have fun, of course. I mean, winning is everything. If you're not first or last, but I've never gotten first in this draft, even to pick the order. So I'm just going for fun with it.
Yeah, listen, Gary telling me that winning is everything, and then just after saying that he took a charge in a pickup game of basketball just gets me hyped up for this episode. I'm ready to run through a wall.
Listen, I'm a winning player. We know how it goes. I pass, I shoot, I play subpar defense unless I care. But we're here.
Awesome. Let's get to it. So I think potentially some of the biggest news was James Harden was expected the whole entire way through. I don't think any of the three of us or anybody watching was truly surprised when he did sign that 2-year, $68.6 million extension. But people actually might have been surprised that he didn't sign the max. He declined a $47.4 million player option, and he instead took a $35.6 million player option on the end of his next deal. So Gary, talk to me a little bit about James Harden signing. Where does this sort of leave the Philadelphia 76ers? Because they made a lot of moves because of the pay cut that James Harden made.
Yeah, they were able to sign a couple of guys. PJ Tucker signed to the team for a 3-year, I believe it was $33 million deal. They also were able to get Daniel House, who, he's a good player, good bench guy, couldn't make the 9-man rotation in the playoffs. Get a little scoring off the dribble, get a little guy who can, just score when you need a bucket in the playoffs. And knowing the Philadelphia 76ers, they've had their bench woes here in the last couple of seasons, specifically last year. I mean, their bench was I hate to say atrocious, but when it came to the playoffs, it was either the James Harden or Joel Embiid making shots, Tyrese Maxey, and no one else other than maybe a Tobias Harris game here and there were getting them the level of scoring that they needed to win those games. So when you take James Harden and you give him if I can do the math real quickly in my head, a $15 million pay cut for this next year to get the cap space to sign those two dudes, it opens up your options for a lot of your team. It opens up the conversation of James Harden willing to sacrifice a little bit from himself to make his team better, especially when the championship window for the 76ers might be the next year or two. And Joel Embiid, he's not old, but he's also not as young as he used to be. So this is the time. 32 years old, James Harden realizes, hey, I can't be the main guy anymore. I might not even be the second guy on my team, but I still need that money. So give me my $33 million a year, but I'll take a pay cut so that, he also helps his guy Daryl Morey out. They go back to Houston. So I like seeing a player sacrifice. We talk about it all the time as a Heat fan. I watched Dwayne Wade take pay cuts every year to sign really terrible guys, and then all of a sudden you land LeBron James, you land Chris Bosh. These pay cuts, while they seem minuscule in the long run, that $15 million can be the difference between you winning a championship and you getting bumped out of the first or second round.
Yeah, and listen, James Harden has made more than enough money to last a lifetime for pretty much anybody on this planet, right? I have it right here. He's compiled over $286 million across his playing career. But Isaiah, he still doesn't have that ring to go with it. So what do you feel are the chances of the Philadelphia 76ers going into next season? James Harden, Gary had mentioned, not household names, but role players, guys that can come off of the bench, and a PJ Tucker, Daniel House, among other players in free agency got added to this roster because of the move that James Harden was willing to make. How do you feel about the 76ers chances going into next season?
Still, I don't have them as my favorites. I don't think any of us do. But who knows? Like a few injuries here and there, and you could find yourself in the mix for it. But he did what he had to do. The 76ers salvaged this whole situation from dating back to with the Ben Simmons situation. And they gave themselves their best shot to win. And I think James Harden has to be given credit. Because, look, I think the star of James Harden is gone. I don't think he's going to be the James Harden that we knew and believed to be anymore. But he did, in a way, also bet on himself because he signed that contract. I believe he has a player option for the second year. So if he does very well, he could very well, he keeps his flexibility open. Like you see a guy like Chris Paul and others, like their contract, like your legacy or your fate is sealed. Whether or not you're going to win a ring, you don't have the flexibility to just pick up and leave somewhere. James Harden has left that option open. If he happens to find himself again, I don't believe he will, but maybe he does, and maybe he will, because he is James Harden. He is a great player. We all know that. He's one of the best scorers of all time. So it's not what I say, it's what he does. So I like that he kept his options open. I like that he sacrificed for a team, which it's a good look because we keep saying, oh, James Harden keeps quitting on his guys. He keeps quitting on his guys. Well, finally, he sacrificed. Now, are they overtaking the Bucks? No, they're not. They're not overtaking the Bucks, the Celtics. But they'll be in the mix, and that's all that matters in the end. So.
Yeah, so here's sort of from what I understand. This was a player that only averaged 22 points a game last season, which is basically unheard of for James Harden, a guy that carried a team as sorry as the Houston Rockets for so many years to the playoffs, carried him on his back. That's right, Gary. Mm-hmm. And last season, he only shot 41% from the field, which was his worst shooting percentage since his rookie season. But with all this being said, this offseason was one of the most ironic events or chain of events I've seen in recent years in NBA history, where the guy that everyone claims quits on his teammates and James Harden was willing to take the pay cut, and yet Damian Lillard, I hate to throw him under the bus, but he talks about not running from competition, wanting to win a championship in Portland, and he decided to take the most amount of money he could in a 2-year extension. It was a complete opposite turn of events. How are you going to expect to win a championship if you're Damian Lillard? I'll say this right here, right now. I think at the end of the day, I had to go in and see if this was a hot take. I had to go back and look at the top 75 players of all time that The Athletic produced. And I was like, oh, is it a hot take if I say James Harden legacy will go down as better than Damian Lillard's legacy? And James Harden was still ranked way higher than Damian Lillard on that list by about 20 to 30 spots. And so I'm sitting here saying when these two players are all done and it's all over with, I really do think James Harden is going to have that better legacy than Dame just because of what he was able to do with the Houston Rockets, what he's able to do now with the Philadelphia 76ers. I don't know, I think that they could be an early favorite, a very, very early favorite. They're at least in the mix among the powerhouses.
They're in the mix, but I'm not going to stand for any Damian Lillard slander, okay? The
I don't know.
Trailblazers are not giving.
I'll stand up. I'll put my hands way up in the air too. James Harden is twice the player that Damian Lillard is. Put that down.
Okay, look, all time legacy wise, you could put James Harden in the mix for one of the. He's not like maybe top 5. I don't know. One of the best shooting guards or one of the best scorers of all time. You can't really put Damian Lillard in that top 5 point guard. So James Harden will be ranked higher, but there's no reason to give slander to Damian Lillard.
I was trying to irk you. No,
the Trailblazers have given no indication that they know how to put together a winning team around him. So damn, he may as well get paid. And you know what? He's like, hey, it's all going to fall on my back anyway. So I may as well just collect the biggest bag I can. I mean, he is Dame Dollar. Anyway, this is not about him, but I just I didn't stand it.
I forgot. He's Dame Dollar.
We're not doing no Dame.
This is deep from 3, and I mean, if I'm going to mention Damian Lillard, I better be taking a shot from the logo.
I mean, like, I'm not saying. Okay, I did say that James Harden is twice the player Damian Lillard is. Might have been a little bit
too far.
I was shooting real heavy there. But my point more stands is that James Harden has had more playoff success, more consistency. Yeah. He's a better scorer. He's a better passer. And you could even argue he's probably a better defender than Damian Lillard, too. Damian Lillard famously is not the greatest defensive player. And James Harden isn't either. But James Harden is a little bit taller, a little bit thicker, and has actually won a playoff game in the Western Conference Finals. So
if you want to put James up there for defense over Dame, you can, but over Dame, you can. I mean, I know you're not saying James is a great defensive player. Like,
no,
not even a good defensive player. Just like he's just there. You know, he tries.
He exists within the basketball, the lines on 92 feet. He's
I will
there.
Tell you this. Look, the one thing I will say is Dame not more clutch than James Harden?
Oh, absolutely. Damian Lillard is one of the most clutch players in the last 20 years in the NBA.
He has his things too. Like, the same arguments people give for Kobe over LeBron, like, more clutch, more the killer instinct. Like, that's basically where I stand. But yeah, James Harden is definitely ranked higher. But again, Dame deserves no slander. Okay, he's going to get none. That's just how it is.
All right, let's try to move into a player who also catches a lot of slander, but I stood up for him a couple of weeks ago when I took him in the latest draft segment as my 6-man, Zion Williamson, getting the bag without even playing basketball. He got a 5-year, $193 million rookie max extension, which can then, by the way, catapult all the way up to $231 million if he makes the All-NBA team next season. So Isaiah, buy or sell, is Zion Williamson the answer for the New Orleans Pelicans moving forward?
The answer is what they have around Zion Williamson, but he's the one that could close it. He could bring it all together. Now, there was one clause. I don't know if this was factual, so I need you guys' help. But was it something about his weight that he had to keep under like a certain
295 pounds, and I believe it also had something to do with his body fat percentage.
Okay. So with that tells me that Zion's going to show up. Okay. I do believe Zion's going to come in there. And look, he doesn't have to put the entire load on his shoulders. Like, all he needs to do, he doesn't need to be the number one option. You got Brandon Ingram, who's stepping up big time. You got CJ McCollum. You got a nice big 3 over there in New Orleans. And, like, the Pelicans are going to make the playoffs next year. I'm just going to say that right now. I don't think that's a hot take either. I think they're a really good team, and I believe you're muted. Or I don't know if you meant to. But anyway, yes. So yeah, Pelicans are going to be in the playoffs, and that's with Zion being one of the main reasons. He's going to put on some highlights there, but yeah, no, Zion's going to do well. Is he going to live up to that contract? He has to stay healthy, but as long as he's healthy, yes. And by the way, you getting on me for taking Dwight Howard last time when you picked Zion Williamson, who's played like 30 games all time. Like, let's not go there. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Gary. So this was a team, and I thought Isaiah made a really, really good point, right? Because it's not necessarily about Zion. The answer actually might be about the team that's around him. New Orleans, they won 2 play-in tournament games without Zion Williamson on the court, and then still won 2 games. They took that series against the top-seeded Phoenix Suns 2-6 games, ultimately coming up short. But with Zion Williamson on the court, that series, in my opinion, could have gone the other way very, very easily. So what's sort of your take about the New Orleans Pelicans handing a rookie max extension to a guy who hasn't necessarily been on the court, but when he has, he averages 25.7 points and shoots over 60% from the field?
I don't think it's any secret to anyone to say that Zion Williamson could potentially be the best player in the NBA if the cards fall correct. If the dominoes land right, Zion Williamson is a 27-10 guy with 5 assists, and he's one of the better passers for his position. He has a little bit of a struggle on defense, which is something that it's all about effort at that point. He's athletic enough that if he really wanted to and tried, he could probably, but with the offensive load on that end, you have to assume that that'll drop off a little bit. But honestly, for the Pelicans, who else are you going to get with that money? It's less of a return on – it's more of a return on your investment in that you've spent this much time with Zion. You won the lottery and literally your entire city cried in happiness. And you're going to let that guy walk to go to the Knicks? I wouldn't do it. Zion Williamson is worth every penny they're going to pay him. And maybe he doesn't pan out the way that we think, but it's not like no one's going to offer stuff for him. I don't know if he has a no trade clause in this contract. I don't believe he does, because I don't think you can get that on a rookie extension deal. However, it benefits only the Pelicans, and I don't see any negatives, because if, say, he does end up and not going well and he gets hurt or something, someone's going to take that contract. Someone's going to take a chance on Zion. People have traded a worse asset for more. So I don't have any worry for the Pelicans. I think this is an easy – they showed up. They gave him the contract. He signed it. They didn't even take 5 minutes in the meeting to talk about it. That's just my personal opinion. But I also, on this podcast, have been a huge lover of Zion, even if he hasn't played all that much. You don't get a guy 6'6" who can shoot 62% from the field on most of his shots from the paint. It's just insane. Zion Williamson is worth every penny that the Pelicans are paying him. And that is alliteration.
So I want to clarify one thing about the weight clause that Isaiah had mentioned and we had backed up. So I had to do a little bit more research because I wasn't necessarily positive whether it was true or not. In the instance that Zion Williamson is somehow in some way waived or released from the New Orleans Pelicans, that's the only instance it would cost Zion Williamson money. It does not affect him while he's currently under contract with the New Orleans Pelicans. People can go back and look at the injury clause that the Philadelphia 76ers gave Joel Embiid because he was facing so many injuries at the time, that a clause in his contract was pretty much, it's going to cost you money if we waive you because of injuries, but not necessarily, it's not going to cost Joel Embiid money while he's on contract with the 76ers. So just want to clarify that while he's under contract with the Pelicans, won't cost him a single dollar, but if he were waived due to his weight per se, then it would cost him money in his contract. Otherwise, it's $193 million. And as I said before, could catapult away all the way up to $231 million by the end of his contract if he makes the All-NBA team next season. And so we will jump into – we're talking a lot about money. We had a lot to catch up on. It's still the off season because a lot of the topics are going to have to do with money. And sometimes it's not always about money. It's about players that want money, because guess what, guys? Tomorrow, Draymond Green becomes at least eligible to earn himself a 4-year, $138.4 million max extension with the Golden State Warriors. This was a player that averaged 7.5 points, 7.3 rebounds, and a whopping 7.0 assists per game last season. A whopping triple single, as I like to say from time to time. So, Gary, I feel like I already know what the answer is going to be from you two fellas, but is Draymond Green worth the max extension with the Golden State Warriors when the timing's right?
The problem that you have with Draymond Green is that his success is completely predicated on how good Steph Curry can be that season. Yeah. And for the Warriors, if you're them, you're paying how many dudes? $100-something million? Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Steph Curry, and now you're about to pay Draymond Green, who in his own right deserves the money that he's offering. But can the Warriors financially, from a perspective of like the luxury tax and whatnot, Joe Lacob is more than willing to pay it. We've seen it in the past. They have the highest luxury tax bill in the entire league. But is Draymond Green a guy that you can, like, I don't want to say build around because he's 32 years old, but is Draymond Green a guy that you can say, like, okay, for the next 4 years, he's going to be the exact same guy that we need him to be? And the answer to that question, to me, is absolutely. I've watched superstars leave their team. Not that Draymond Green's like a superstar, but I've watched local legends, I would say, leave their team for more money and their career tanks at the end of it. And they get left a legacy that isn't as good because they team hopped. I mean, you got look at guys like Hakeem Olajuwon's team hopping at the end of his year. Dwayne Wade went to the Bulls. We don't talk about that though. There's guys that are trying to get some money, and I get it. They want what they're worth. Everybody has a price tag. It's all, you know. What's the Jessie J song? It's not about the it's not about the money.
About the money.
But sometimes it is. Especially for a guy who, like Draymond, has probably taken a couple of pay cuts in his career to put a team around him that would succeed. So for Draymond, I get it. Yeah. Get that money. For the Warriors, if they don't give him that contract, I don't blame them. But at the same time, it sucks to watch that local legend leave your team, because Draymond Green is that. He is one of the greatest Warriors of all time. He has 4 championship rings with them. And watching that dude walk away for what could possibly be the difference in like $6 to $7 million a season, I don't think that's worth what it would hurt for your fan base.
Never would I ever thought that I could sit in a podcast with you two fellas and think that a Jessie J lyric was ever going to show up. I really, it wasn't on my bingo card. It wasn't on my bingo card of things to occur.
Oh, I'll bring out all the songs. Don't talk. I have the lyrics up right now because I wanted to make sure I got it right.
So
if you
Isaiah,
wonder what my podcast notes are, it's Jessie J lyrics.
Perfect. Isaiah, this is a really interesting situation because it's not necessarily Gary once again makes a really good point about the luxury tax itself. If they did pay Draymond Green, last season was a league high $346 million in luxury taxes and player penalties. If they were to pay Draymond Green tomorrow what he believes he is worth, that number is going to skyrocket upwards of $400 million, which is a price that's clearly too high to afford. But here becomes the really interesting scenario, Isaiah, because in 2023 and 2024, at the end of that season, you're going to have not only Draymond hitting free agency, but you're going to have Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, and Andrew Wiggins all hitting free agency. And guess what? All of those guys are probably going to be looking for a max extension as well, if not just a touch less. So if you're the GM and you're in the front office over in Golden State, how do you sort of address this situation between those 4 guys?
Well, he's probably going to be up all night tonight thinking about this very question, because it's one of those things like, you know, I wish there was a world where this is one of those times where I wish there wasn't really a salary cap, because I want Draymond to get paid. He deserves to get paid.
Whoa.
what just happened? Anyway,
Here what is. Kobe got paid, and that's what you were doing.
Actually, similar situation to the Kobe.
Literally, yeah. I mean, Kobe. Let's be honest, way better than Draymond. But yes,
you honored Kobe at the end of his career for all his hard work with them. It was like a massive. Like, was it like $20 million a year?
It was 30. It was like $30 million a year for Kobe at the end of that.
I don't care what anybody says. Well deserved. Anyway, moving on.
Worth it.
So
for that game alone.
Absolutely. And the tickets being so. Anyway, besides the point. But Draymond deserves to get paid, but Gary hit the point. Like, there's really not much I can add to what he said. They can't afford it. You just mentioned it. You got Jordan Poole coming up, Klay Thompson. You just can't hinder your future success for Draymond. Pay him as much as you can if he will take it. But again, I don't know that he can go somewhere else and fit. Like, off the top of my head, maybe Miami might be a decent, he could go in there. I don't know, but and then but who's going to pay him money? But nobody's going to pay him that. I'm just talking like fit wise, financially wise. I mean, he may want that.
I would love to see a Draymond Green in an Atlanta Hawks jersey. Not saying it's because I'm living in Atlanta now, but I think actually with Trae Young and Clint Capella, and I mean that's just DeAndre Hunter. That's just a recipe for some good time. DeJounte Murray. These are guys that you got that one glue piece. That's maybe the difference between a first and an Eastern Conference final. Utah. Who's he passing to?
A guy that needs a running game. Like, there's not many choices here. So,
It's true. Especially with the price tag he's coming with.
It's one of those situations. Like, man, like if he gets paid tomorrow, I'll be like, you probably shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, I'll be happy too because, if you can keep your three core guys, that's like the right thing to do. But it's not the smart thing to do.
So here's sort of where I stand in this, because this was an article that I produced not too long ago when I first heard the news of Draymond Green wanting that max extension of $138.4 million. First of all, I thought at first it was crazy because of the situation Golden State was in. They just physically aren't going to be able to afford him if he's not willing to take the pay cut. However, what you don't see, aside from the 7.5 points, 7.3 rebounds, 7 assists, is what he's able to do defensively. His defensive rating of 102.1 was the highest it's been since the 2017 to 2018 season. So he is playing defensively at a career high, one could argue. Gentlemen, I don't think he is going to finish his career with the Golden State Warriors. I want to clip this when he eventually signs somewhere else when the time comes. Here's two locations that I had mentioned very, very briefly, just based on rumors, based on reports, based on what I've seen, what I've heard. Number one, if he really truly wants the money and nothing more, doesn't want to win another championship, he's a player that went to Michigan State. There's a team over in Detroit that his mom actually ended up tweeting that she would love for Draymond to go back to his family roots over with the Detroit Pistons. So you could see him over in the Eastern Conference with Detroit. But if he wanted to stay in the Western Conference and play with a guy that received some slander earlier on this episode, in November of 2021, Damian Lillard was quote-unquote obsessed with the idea of the Portland Trailblazers adding Draymond Green to their roster. Obsessed. I'm not using that word out of context. That is the exact word. So one Eastern Conference team, one Western Conference team. I think both of these teams could be potential suitors, especially if Portland can find a little bit more money to play with. I know, Damian Lillard's too obsessed with taking all of the money himself and not winning a ring for once. But Draymond has plenty of rings. He's got plenty of them. He's got 4 in the span of 8 years. So wherever he does go, he's going to have that championship veteran experience. But I love both of those fits. I don't know how you guys feel.
I like the idea of Damian Lillard up all night, like on his keyboard doing the trade machine, just like sitting on ESPN.com and refreshing, looking up contracts. He's calling his GM like, "Hey, how many picks can we put in this trade?" Right. I like that idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would like that fit. I mean, but like, yeah, I guess I like it, but it's the type of thing, like, he's not going to be as valuable anywhere as he is in Golden State. So it's like,
yeah.
Here's the other point I wanted to make too. I'm sorry, but if Jalen Brunson is worth $104 million, then Draymond Green is worth whatever he damn well wants to be worth. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but not if you're the Warriors.
Like a lot of Jalen Brunson slander on this podcast.
Not if you're the Warriors.
Like, no, I'm not about to sit here and put up for Brunson at all. So, I mean, he's gonna have to, put in some work first before I can start doing that. So,
Gary, 43 in the playoffs. I'm sorry.
I'm not a toxic Knicks fan. Come on.
Gary, I wanted to throw the question back to you. What I'll bring it back to is full circle as we conclude the Draymond Green segment. But if you had to pay one of the four between Draymond, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, and Klay Thompson, given their current state right now, because obviously I think Klay Thompson is the best legacy, but we saw the product that he put on the court last season. It wasn't great, but it also wasn't himself. Which of those four players would you end up paying if you had one max contract to give between those four?
If I had one max contract to give between those four, I probably would lean more towards the Jordan Poole and the Andrew Wiggins of the two. I love Klay. Klay was one of my favorite players to watch in that 2015, 2014 range when he was just starting to cook. And of course, we all started to hate the Warriors when they were winning all those chips. Came back full circle with the last year's championship. We were happy to see him get his fourth. But I think at the Warriors, they've always talked about the emphasis on rebuilding their roster while staying in competitive basketball. They won a chip last year with a bunch of young guys and some of their old vets. So if you're the Warriors and you're looking at it, you're like, okay, Klay Thompson coming off an Achilles injury, two of them, I believe. You got to think like, all right, we got to put our money in a smart place. Might be the bad decision. It might be a decision that the fans don't like, but I think that paying Jordan Poole that max extension is probably what the Warriors are going to do, and it's the most intelligent thing that they could do, considering, Klay Thompson, they give him that extension. He's, 38, and now coming off two injuries at 38 years old. Yeah, he can still shoot the lights out, but where is he athletically in that standpoint? As a system player, there's no one better fit than Klay Thompson on the Warriors. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of, all right, we got to build for the next 5, 6, 7 years, I think Jordan Poole's getting that money.
Yeah. Isaiah, I knew I threw it to you very briefly before, but also want to give you the same exact question. Between the four players, you get Draymond, you get Klay, you get Jordan Poole, or you get Andrew Wiggins. Which of those four are you paying if you get one extension?
Again, in fairness of parity for the league, we're not going to go with Wiggins, but so no, I mean, that's another one of those tough questions because, in my opinion, you got to see what happens next year. I got to see, if Klay is what we saw and this is it moving forward, then yeah, you got to go with Poole. But at the same time, I would like to see Poole get a second season under his belt playing as well as he did last year. And I would like to see if Klay can bounce back. Because if Klay bounces back, I think that's still your best opportunity to win championships. I don't think the Warriors are done. I think they still have maybe one more ring in the books unless Jordan Poole elevates. If Jordan Poole elevates from what we saw this year, then yeah, there's no question. You got to sign Jordan Poole. But if he remains roughly the same and Klay elevates back to what we know him to be, you got to go with that. That's the best shooting backcourt in NBA history. You simply cannot get better than that. And you have James Wiseman. Hopefully he's going to play, right? And that's still a championship winning team. I don't know if you can put that on Poole. We got to see. Right now, as when last seen, I'm going with Poole. But I'm not, it's not sold yet. I reserve the right to change my mind by next year.
Yeah, listen, after that NBA Finals performance, if I'm paying one player right now just based on what I saw this past season, guys, people are comparing the defensive performance of Andrew Wiggins to Kawhi Leonard versus LeBron James-esque, Michael Jordan versus Magic Johnson in the early 90s during their NBA Finals duel-esque. They're calling it one of the best defensive performances of all time of Andrew Wiggins versus Jason Tatum just because of what Andrew Wiggins was able to do defensively. So I'd probably end up paying Andrew Wiggins, which sounds crazy because at one point in time when I was moderating an NBA All-Star draft, nobody wanted anything to do with Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, I mean, I like Wiggs. I really do. And he showed how great he was in the finals. I would love to see how much. I don't have the stats in front of me. When Draymond was out the past year, I believe he missed about half the season. I would love to see the defensive numbers between when Wiggins is on the court with Draymond and without. I'm not saying that I'm going to give all the credit to Draymond, but there's a reason that man is as well known defensively as he should be. He is one of the greatest defenders in NBA history. And let's see if Draymond does leave or he does and they give the extension to Wiggins. I would love to see the defensive level that Wiggins can bring without a front court pair of one of the greatest defensive players in NBA history. I just would like to see that first. That's just me.
Yeah,
because think about it though, like if Wiggins is all that's left when the dust settles with Steph Curry, like Steph Curry, Wiggins, and Wiseman, is that a championship trio? I don't think so. Steph is still great, but now if we got a elevated Steph, Clay, Wiseman, is that a potential championship trio? Absolutely, right? So you gotta see.
Yeah, it's very possible. And so let's shift into the last house cleaning topic. This one will probably be a little bit more brief because it's not completely centered around an NBA player, but instead an NBA coach who I believe has been exceeding expectations since he's landed in Phoenix. We don't have the exact figures, which is very odd because the news isn't relatively breaking at this point. But Monty Williams gets a long-term extension with the Phoenix Suns following his Coach of the Year reign. With the team that ended up as the top seed, ended up coming up short in the Western Conference playoffs. Fellas, this is a head coach with a 65.6% winning percentage across his coaching tenure. Isaiah, talk to me a little bit about Monty Williams, what he's able to provide the Phoenix Suns, and if you think there's a chance now that we know that DeAndre Ayton is returning to the Suns next season, that the Phoenix Suns may end up in the Western Conference Finals, maybe the NBA Finals. What do you think?
I put them on the same level playing field as the Philadelphia 76ers. They're in the mix, and Monty Williams has a lot to do with that because, look, first of all, he's a great guy. Right? I think a lot of people, if you know anything about him, you're rooting for him. Of course, he lost his wife in 2016. He finally gets his chance, and he takes the Suns to the NBA Finals. And the Suns are not a perfect team. Like, they had to have someone in there to make those wheels turn, and they became a legitimate threat last year, even with an older CP3 and, DeAndre Ayton, who's still trying to fight himself, and Devin Booker, who's good one day and bad the next. That's just how it is. So Monty Williams deserves a lot of credit for this Sun success, and he absolutely deserves his extension. So now, do I put them in the championship? No, I just don't, because there's Golden State, there's still teams in there. There's the Denver Nuggets. There's so many teams I have above them. I just don't trust. I guess I'm gonna say I don't trust Devin Booker. I'm gonna say it right now. I just do not trust Devin Booker when it matters. He still has a chance to elevate. Like a lot of people got on Jason Tatum. I'm not doing that to Jason Tatum. Like, he made it to the NBA Finals. I want to see what he does next year. But do you know who made it to the finals and then had a chance to follow up on that? Devin Booker. And I haven't seen it yet. I want to believe that he will, because I'm rooting for the guy. Kobe's my favorite player of all time. And he showed a lot of respect to Kobe. So it's not that I'm rooting against him, but I want to believe, can you take the pressure? And you're going to need to. Chris Paul is older now. Chris Paul, when last seen, did not really look like the Chris Paul that we know. He's resembled more Rajon Rondo than anybody else. Okay, that's but so So no, they're not going to win unless Devin Booker can prove me wrong, and I'm just going to say it right now. He's not.
And Gary, this perfectly ties into the segue that I was going to ask you, because right here on my notes, a question I was going to ask you was, who's the biggest favor, or not the biggest favor, the biggest factor in the Suns' success on the court next season? If I had to guess what Isaiah's answer would be, it would be Devin Booker. He has to step up. He has to come back stronger this season. Are you sort of on the same page that it has to be Devin Booker? Do you think it could be Chris Paul, who, is getting a lot of slander over this offseason as a player who just can't finish in the playoffs? Or could it be DeAndre Ayton, the guy who many accused didn't really have that second gear? So where do you sort of stand in all that?
I really do think that at the end of the day, even with his age, you got to look and see this team wasn't really doing much when he wasn't there. So Chris Paul coming into that championship level talent, that championship level mindset, he elevates that team to a whole new stratosphere when it comes to their preparation, the way that they can coach on the court. And he just knows how to win those games. Of course, in the playoffs, he hasn't had the success that we would like to see. Chris Paul, goodness, do people talk about him like he's, they act as if he's got a chicken bone stuck in his throat the entire, season. But he's not as bad as a playoff performer as one might think. When you look at the stats, when you look at his resume, yes, he's fallen short in a couple of big games, but Chris Paul is the reason this team made the finals. Chris Paul is the reason this team had the number 1 seed in the West last year. And yes, Monty Williams is the best coach that they've had since Mike D'Antoni. And Monty Williams absolutely deserves the credit for being one of the better coaches in the NBA, from the way that he does his rotations, from the way that he game plans defensively. And a lot of that does come from Monty. He's known around the league as a very bright coach, a great mind, especially when it comes to drawing plays from out of bounds. But I think it really does come down to Chris Paul is on this team, and that's the most important part. If Chris Paul leaves and it's just Devin Booker's team, they might win 50 games, but they're not at the level that they need to be to win a championship like they should when you have the talent level on their roster. Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton can play as much defense as they want, but when you don't have a guy out there orchestrating it like Chris Paul does, it does seem to fall off a little bit. So I think Chris Paul is the most important player on the Suns, even at his age.
Okay. Listen, I'll give you guys this one little tidbit about Monty Williams, because that's sort of who we began the discussion about. Last season, when the Phoenix Suns were leading after 3 quarters of play, this was a team that was 47-0. Never lost a game last season when leading through 3 quarters of play. So Monty Williams still had 2 years left on his contract. Obviously, we assume is getting the bag right now. When those numbers come out, we'll be sure to release them. But for now, we just know it's a multi-year deal, and I think we can all agree it's well-deserved for what he's been able to accomplish.
Absolutely.
You don't have Monty Williams like coaches just laying around over there, but you need to lock them up when you can. Absolutely.
All right, listen, fellas, it's that time. It is that time, and I always save this for last because it's sort of like you got to eat your greens and you got to eat your dinner before you can get to the dessert. And here we are, dessert time, because it's time for the second installment of our draft. Rules, as always, in case you're just checking this out for the very first time over here at the Athletes Hub, we're doing a 3-person draft. It's going to be snake order. You're going to be able to draft 5 starters and 1 wild card / 6th man. You don't necessarily need to build your lineup any sort of way. It has to remain realistic. For example, in this draft where we're doing all international players, no, you can't put Hakeem Olajuwon at your point guard. You can't just build. And I always forget about the music. And I absolutely love it. I love this touch. So here's how it's going to work. International players only. We agreed that the discussion was going to be they had to be born outside of the United States of America. They could have went to college in the U.S. They could have played overseas at some point in time. So a guy like, we discussed this before, Rick Fox, who went to college at UNC, would be eligible for this because, what did we say, he was born in Canada?
Yes.
So
if you take Rick Fox, I have questions.
I'm thinking about it because here's the draft order that we have set in motion. After randomizing, this is purely random, yours truly has the number 1 pick in the international draft. And I still don't know what I'm going to end up doing. Truthfully, that's why I'm trying to stall this out. Gary will then have the number 2 pick, and then Isaiah, you had the number 1 pick last time, didn't you?
Yeah, so we kind of
number 1. So Isaiah will now have the number 3, and in snake order, in case you're not familiar, it'll wrap back around. So Isaiah will have picks 3 and 4, and then it'll work its way back through Gary and myself, and then it'll flip back over, so on and so forth. So, fellas, any clarifications, any questions, or are we ready to rumble?
Oh, I'm all ready. I've got my order. I already know who I'm picking.
Ooh.
I don't think you guys are going to touch a single person I'm about to select.
Really?
That's on my thing. When you guys put the order in the little thing, I was like, he's going to take him, then he'll take him, and then I'll snag him. So I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So I had the number 1 pick, right?
Mhm.
And last draft that we did, all I saw on Twitter was they loved Gary's team, they loved Isaiah's team, Gary's team, Isaiah's team, and I sat there crying to myself night in and night out, being like, why are these young heads not relating to Oscar Robertson? Why are they not relating to
You're going to do it.
Kareem?
No, don't do it.
He's going to do it.
I have to do something for the fans, right?
No, don't do it.
It would be so easy to take the number 1 player on my board, but there's so much depth at the center position that I can pass on Olajuwon, and I can go for someone a little bit more current, someone a little bit more exciting. How about the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who I think when all is said and done, he's going to pass a lot of these international players. I think he's going to end up passing Hakeem Olajuwon by the time his career is over. This man, already a reigning MVP, already a finals MVP, already 3 All-NBA first-team selections, multiple All-Star selections, defensive player of the year. I mean, what else do I really need? I'm going to put him at my power forward position. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. I don't even think I truly saw that coming until this very moment. But I have to go with Giannis Antetokounmpo.
May I ask what position you will be putting him at?
So I'm going to be putting him for now at my power forward position.
Okay.
I'd like to think that I can put him either at my power forward or at my center, depending on how this draft works.
Okay.
He's got the size for a center. He's played 5 a few times, but I don't think I would consider him a 3.
I would have let you put him at 3, 4, or 5. To be honest with you, I think that would have been fair.
Yeah. And so, Gary, this all comes back to you now. So now, I don't know. I like to think in my mind that I might have rattled the board a little bit.
You rattled me.
No, I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't expecting Giannis to go 1. Mm-hmm. Now, in the next 5 years, that might be the obvious pick. Hakeem Olajuwon, of course, is one of the greatest defensive players of all time. 2 rings with the Rockets. But I won't be taking him. And the reason being is because I took him last draft. And as much as I would love to, I would say, pick the best player available, I would like to show respect to a legend. I will be picking the German general, that's not his nickname, but I just came up with it, Dirk Nowitzki, who, by the way, I have to say, absolutely torched my Heat in the 2011 finals. But you're getting a guy here with an MVP trophy who honestly is pretty underrated when it comes to all time. He averages 20 a game for his career, and obviously he had a little bit of a drop off at the end there, but in his prime, he averages 26 a game. He brings the Mavs probably the heaviest ring in NBA history when it comes to the level of competition he faced in the Western Conference. He played the Suns. He played the Lakers. He almost lost to the Brandon Roy Portland Trailblazers, but then he goes to the finals and he beats LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, the super team. I have to go with Dirk Nowitzki, possibly, and unless Karl Anthony Towns comes into this chat real quick, the greatest shooting big man of all time.
Yeah, and Dirk was definitely, we talked about this before, whether there's a top 3 very clear cut and dry. Dirk Nowitzki was one of the players in my top 3 alongside Giannis and Hakeem Olajuwon, who obviously is going to end up falling down to Iz. I'm not sure he really would have expected that, but Iz, sort of talk to us what's going through your mind right now as you get the number 3 and number 4 pick.
Yeah, I did not expect that. I really thought Dev was going to take Hakeem number 1. So for me, it was either going to be Giannis or Dirk. Hakeem was not even in my plans, okay? So, but now that he's here, I got to take Hakeem, right? I mean, the center, the center depth is pretty nice, but I'm going to secure one of the greatest players of all time easily. I have to. A lot of people will argue he's the greatest international player of all time. Again, it may get challenged later on. So Hakeem, not a big surprise there, right? Now here's what might be a little bit of a surprise. Here's what might be a little
Boy, here we go.
There was something that I struggled with in the last draft. I believe it was the shooting guard position it was just very light, and I found myself trying to grasp that. So I'm not gonna do that. I'm looking at the depth of this draft, and I'm just gonna lock it down. I'm gonna take Mr. Manu himself, Manu Ginobili.
Oh boy,
the shooting guard. About to do it. Gotta lock it in. Gotta lock it in. And
I love that pick. Manu, of course, was on my list of players that I wanted, but good Lord, is Manu underrated when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Excellent selection, my friend.
Yeah.
That's it.
So. Manu Ginobili, part of one of the greatest dynasties in NBA history with that San Antonio Spurs team that also had Tony Parker, who is out there at some point in time, might get taken in this draft. You never know. There's a lot of picks to go, but with Manu and Hakeem both selected by Isaiah, we now wrap back around to Gary, who has Dirk Nowitzki and ready to make his next pick.
So for my next selection, there is a guy, or there's two people on this list still here who are MVPs. One of them a little bit earlier, or a little bit ago, and the other one who just won it this season. And I might be reaching a little bit here, especially considering the depth.
You're not.
But I'm going to be taking the Serbian big man himself, Nikola Jokic, at my center position. Two-time MVP. He had the best PER in NBA history last year. And not only do I have the best center available left, I also have, other than maybe one other person on this list, the best passer left in the draft. Nikola Jokic, two-time MVP, back-to-back. What else do I have to say? I'm going with Jokic.
Honestly, that's really nice. Dirk and the Joker and like the front court. Yeah, that's a nice
Dirk and Jokic. Oh, I've got a whole strategy here. Don't even worry. I'm so excited for my next picks.
I'm not going to lie. That hurt because when we were talking off of camera before all of this, I said that there could possibly be a top 4 in this, one could argue, and Nikola Jokic was right in there in my top 4. That was actually going to be one of my next 2 picks, but I'm really content because I had 3 guys on my board, and Gary made my life easy because now I don't have to pick between the 3 guys. So I'm going to secure my backcourt right now. I'm going to take a point guard, and I hate to downplay my own team, but possibly the biggest fraud of an MVP in recent NBA history, because it should have been Kobe's MVP, but Steve Nash, come on over. Steve Nash will be securing it down at the point guard position. What do I really have to say about Steve Nash, the Canadian? He's got 2 MVPs, he's got 7 All-NBA selections, 8 All-Star selections, and a silver medal over in the Olympics. And didn't we say before he was born in Canada, but didn't he grow up is this South Africa?
Yeah, I believe, if I'm correct, I'm going to go Google it right now. Steve Nash was born in South Africa. I believe that is correct. He was born in Johannesburg, South Africa, which is crazy to think that, but it's just always, it's funny when you see the list of players in NBA history who are from Africa, and you just see Steve Nash's face up there. Just always a little weird, just strange.
Might I add, he's also the godfather of Mr. RJ Barrett. I just had to throw that in there.
That is true. He's RJ Barrett's godfather.
There you go. So, all the respect.
So, Dev, you get a second pick here.
I get a second pick, and this is a draft where last time around I had to bite the bullet. I think the reason I lost the draft was because we couldn't handle the fact that Ben Simmons had to play my shooting guard. So I have to lock down shooting guard. And I got nervous when Isaiah said he was going to lock down his shooting guard because I thought he was going to take a certain player, but instead he took another. I'm going to argue that this player is going to end with a greater legacy than Manu Ginobili. This player might even end with a greater legacy than a lot of the guys that have already been drafted if things play out the right way. I have to keep it new school right here, though, when I take Luka Doncic.
Goodness.
I'm taking Luka Doncic. So now I get Steve Nash. I get Luka Doncic. along with Giannis Antetokounmpo, a very modern, a very fresh, a very just a great team to start around. All I need now is my small forward and my center, and you two have already taken your center, so I can just hold on to that until the last round. So, Gary, this jumps back to you. You still need a point guard, shooting guard, and a small forward. What are you thinking here?
So I have a feeling. So let me look here. Dev has a point guard. Isaiah does not. I feel like I need to take a point guard here, just because of the level of, there's a lot of guys on this list that I really like, but I think I will be taking the one, Tony Parker, with my next pick. 15 points a game. He's got a Finals MVP, 4-time champ, 4-time All-NBA. 6-time All-Star. His number's I don't know if it is already, but his number is going to be retired in San Antonio eventually, if it hasn't already. One of the greatest floaters in NBA history. Just absolutely, you go look at the stats. This is one of my favorite things. Tony Parker is, I believe, 6'2". He has one of the highest field goal percentages at the rim for any guard in NBA history. The fact that a guy at 6'2" can shoot almost 60% at the rim is just a testament to how good of a player he was when he was in his prime. We don't talk about the last year he was with the Charlotte Hornets, but I will be taking Tony Parker with this pick.
Okay, Tony Parker. Isaiah, that's the two. Yeah. Steve Nash, Tony Parker just flew off the board, and now it ends up being your pick. You can hold on to point guard until the very last pick, but I will warn you, Gary still needs a shooting guard, and last time around, I really thought Kyrie Irving was going to fall to me, but we started taking combo guards and wing players and all this other crazy stuff. So there is a chance that the player you're thinking of might not fall back to you. But what's sort of your strategy over here at the end of this round?
So, again, I'm going for the weaker areas, okay? And I'm looking to fill them early because there's still one position here where I could realistically live with one of the guys that falls to me. But I cannot live with Luka being off the board, Steve Nash being off the board. Now I need to make a move. Dev, you did this to me. This is your fault. So, because those have been my choice. I'm not going to lie. The 3 picks that Devin has picked so far were the 3 that I really had my eyes on.
I have your team. Basically.
Those were it. So I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for a little bit of actually maybe 2 reaches, you might argue. But I feel like Gary's going to appreciate this, okay? Well, maybe not.
The first one, my guy.
Maybe, but not the first one. Okay, I'm going to start it with a reach, a guy who I feel like is going to team with your guy next season. And I think they're my favorites to win the NBA Finals. You're going to see me start from the beginning. I'm going to go with Jamal Murray as my point guard, damn it. Yeah. I'm going to do it.
Wow.
I was slightly considering Ben Simmons, but I do need a guy that's going to shoot. He's definitely not going to do that, right?
Wow. So, I love that. I don't know if I would have done that, but I love that.
Okay. So now.
That's a deep take. That is definitely
a deep take.
A deep take, but I'm gonna just do it. I got one more. Now this is probably gonna be a deep take, and this one I think is Gary's pick. I do think this might be on Gary's list right here. I need to lock down the small forward position too, because they're not just lying around in this draft. I'm going with the boy Peja Stojakovic. I can't pronounce.
Ooh, okay. It wasn't what I was gonna pick, but that's a great one.
Okay, so I'm gonna lock it in. We got the guys with the smooth touch, but of course Jamal Murray is just that young energizer for the lineup, in my opinion. And then you got just some veterans, some guys. Well, of course they're veterans now at this point, but just at their best, they were very crafty and skillful, in my opinion. So there we go.
I will say, Peja Stojakovic was my number 2 small forward, behind Luka Doncic at one point in time.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie. I think I might be falling into the same category as Dev did last week. Like, these names aren't gonna really win, but you know what? If we were playing a game with 2K, I think I like my chances. So.
All right, Gary, this all comes back around to you, my friend. So Isaiah definitely threw a little bit of a barn burner in those last 2 picks. But what are you sort of thinking here?
So I'm looking at my board, right? I'm looking at my team, and I go to myself, man, I got a lot of offense, but I do not have that much defense on my team. So I need a guy who is going to lock down on the perimeter. I need a guy who, when he played, was one of the greatest defensive wings in the league, and one could argue possibly one of the greater defensive wings of his generation. I am going to go with not only my favorite player to ever play for the Utah Jazz, but my favorite nickname in NBA history. I will be going with Andrei Kirilenko, AK-47, who, by the way, when he was in his prime, was not only one of the better defensive players in the league, but could absolutely just light it up offensively in transition. I love Andrei Kirilenko for a lot of reasons. I loved him watching him on those that Jazz team with Paul Millsap and Raja Bell. That was just a fun time. I am going with Andrei Kirilenko.
Okay, Andrei Kirilenko, AK-47. I did not see that coming either. So this is where things get tricky, and I'm going to have to take – I feel like it's cheap, but I'm here to win. That's what we started off at the beginning of this. We said we're here to win, and I'm going to take the charge right here as Gary Wood, and I'm going to put Giannis up to my 3, and that leaves me now with a power forward and a center. I know who one of my picks are going to be, so how about I just get it out of the way? It would be disrespectful for me as a Lakers fan to not take this man. It would be disrespectful. I could not go upstairs and sleep peacefully tonight if I did not take none other than Paul Gasol on my team. So Paul Gasol is going to come on in as the power forward.
Devin's winning this game. Just look at this team.
Luka Doncic.
You got
Giannis
Steve Nash.
Paul Gasol.
You could put JaVale McGee at center and you'd win this team.
I could put JaVale McGee. But there's a lot of names I like here, fellas, at the center position. I'm just trying to figure out which of them are going to end with the best chances of getting me a championship. I'm going to go with I don't know. There's 3 names I have here on my board.
Same.
And one of them I will tell you, I'm not going to take Marc Gasol, but it would be nice to have Paul and Marc Gasol.
Oh, that would be cool. That would actually
cool. For the culture.
Yeah.
It would be cool. But I'm going to take I already have too many new school players. I'm going to go throwback here. I'm going to go with a little finger wag here. Dikembe Mutombo. I'm going to go Mutombo.
That's a great pick.
Here. So Mutombo rounds out my starting 5 that now has, like we said before, it has Steve Nash, Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Paul Gasol, and Dikembe Mutombo. So that's what we're going to ride with. Which now brings us back to Gary, who, let's see what's left of the shooting guard players. Gary, sort of talk to us as you go through your last pick before we get to our wild cards.
So I gotta say this right now. I already know who I'm gonna pick. He's a favorite of mine. Always has been. You're gonna clown it. I don't care. There's a guy here who's not gonna get selected, who will probably go as someone's 6th man, and I probably will. They're gonna clown me for skipping on this guy, but I am going to go with one of my favorite Heat players of all time. I have to pick the Dragon, Goran Dragic, who absolutely is. And look at my team now. You got Tony Parker and Goran Dragic. And I just got to say, we are going to have the most backwards-ass team when it comes to the way that we shoot the basketball. Normally, your guards are the ones that are shooting from 3, but I'm going to have a pick and roll with Jokic and Dirk, and then switch it where they're the ones It's over, bro. We're doing it. Tony Parker, Goran Dragic, AK-47, Dirk Nowitzki, Nikola Jokic. I love my team, mainly for the fact that it's just really weird.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. I'll give you that. But I do like it. I will say, Gary, Goran Dragic, if I did not get Luka Doncic, he was going to end up being my starting shooting guard. He was my next man up, and he very well could have end up, if he was somehow there with my Mr. Irrelevant pick as the last pick in the wild cards, he would have been off the board with my team. But a very good pick, a very strong starting lineup that has Tony Parker, Goran Dragic, AK-47, Dirk Nowitzki, Nikola Jokic, and still has a wild card pick. So we'll shortly get to what your wild card pick is. But before we get to that, Isaiah, you've got a power forward that needs to be plugged into that starting lineup, as well as any person, any position ending up in that wild card spot. So start with your power forward. Who are you going with?
All right, so for me, I'm gonna just go for it. We talk about new school. I look at Gary's team. He has a lot of shooting big men. He mentioned this guy briefly earlier. He's going to be a 4 this year. One of the greatest shooting big men, if he's watching, Mr. Karl Anthony Towns. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Lock that down. In the post, he's going to be locking it down over there. And he's just going to be dishing it out to guys like Cat and Peja. And you know what? I need a guy that could chase around Gary's shooters on the perimeter, the big men. And I think Karl Anthony Towns is that guy. So I'm going with Cat as my starting power forward. And I'm pretty happy with that team. So, of course, we got Jamal Murray, Manu Ginobili, Peja Stojakovic, right? Karl Anthony Towns, and Hakeem Olajuwon. And I'm pretty happy with that.
Wait, hold on. Time out.
What's the problem?
Is he an international player?
He's born in the Dominican Republic.
He sure is.
Karl Anthony Towns.
I'm looking
born
right
in the
now,
Dominican
and it says, it says he was born in Edison, New Jersey.
What?
Wait,
he plays for the Dominican Republic national team. That's all I know.
I've been completely misled. Hang on.
Wow, this website lied to us.
Is that true? Are we going with this? Is this the
I was okay with it.
He's born in New Jersey. I'm calling it.
You consider New Jersey a state, first of all. Let's go there.
New Jersey might as well be
New Jersey.
I hate to do this. Everywhere I look right now, I don't see anywhere that says outside of Edison, New Jersey.
Man, Bob Nightingale.
His parents do have ties outside of the United States, but he is not an international player. So we're going to have to make you repick, reevaluate, just for the sake of argument.
Skirt. We got to...
Definitely a skirt.
Look, for everybody watching, you can see Dev is clearly doing all he can to throw me off. Okay? That's what Dev's doing.
Right. It just didn't sound right.
Okay? All right. I'm not going to lie. That changes everything for me because I was saving that in my back pocket for the last pick. But it's okay. Okay? It's okay. Now, I don't know because I believe we had 2 centers in the front court for somebody last week. Right?
Yeah, I had David Robinson and Hakeem Olajuwon.
Okay, I'm glad that you did that because I'm gonna do the same thing, and it's disrespectful that we didn't pick him this time around. And I believe he was available last week too.
He was
2 weeks, and we did not take him. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah, you got it.
We gotta do Mr. Yao Ming, my friend. We gotta lock it in. Yao Ming. My lineup just got a lot bigger. I might put him at the 5 and Hakeem at the power 4 position. Who knows? But you know what? Yao Ming could shoot too. I don't know if he's going to chase around the big guys like I was just talking about with Cat, but he's still going to be quite productive on the team. I'm happy with that. Jamal Murray, Manu Ginobili, Peja Stojakovic, Yao Ming, and Hakeem Olajuwon. All right? You know what?
I'm just glad you took an international player. That's all I'm happy about.
That is. I'm firing Bob Nightingale as my court. He's completely fired.
Those things happen. Happen, and it's a good starting lineup. 2 big men. I mean, we're gonna end up seeing it this upcoming season, right? With Cat and Rudy Gobert, for example, over with Minnesota Timberwolves. So that's a great example, and this obviously was an instance that happened in our last draft. But Isaiah, now you get the chance to redeem yourself because you've got 2 big men playing the 4 and the 5. You've also got Jamal Murray. You've got Manu Ginobili. You've got Peja Stojakovic. So now you get to address any weaknesses. You get to capitalize on any strengths. Who are you taking with the number 1 wild card pick in this draft?
So you just said it. I'm gonna buffer up my strength here. Okay. I'm not gonna lie. I was slightly tempted to pull a Devin and go with Ben Simmons. Slightly tempted because he would bring some defense and some passing off the bench. But I'm not gonna do that. All right. I got the older players on here aside from Jamal Murray. All right. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it. You know what I'm about to do. I'm gonna take him. Gary mentioned a recent MVP. He was at least in the running. This guy's gonna win an MVP again. Mr. Joel Embiid is going to be my sixth man. I gotta show some type of appeal to the younger audience, like Dev was mentioning earlier. Yeah, Mr. Embiid. I got some big men coming off the bench, and of course, he could also shoot. By the way, he's not he can also shoot, and he can get it down low. So Joel Embiid rounds out the lineup. I would have liked another guard. I would have taken Luka early on. I probably would have taken Jamal Murray as my sixth man, but we're not going to talk about that. I'm happy with my team.
Yeah, that one stung a little bit. That one definitely stung. I was going to take Joel Embiid, considered him as my starting center. He was in there in the mix with the likes of Yao Ming. He was in there with the likes of Joel Embiid. Mutombo was also in that mix, as well as Marc Gasol. So great pick, great wild card pick as well. Three big men, though. Three big men is definitely a bold strategy. And Gary, your last pick. You still got plenty of options on the field. What are you thinking here?
So this is a guy, and I mean, of course, I have a little bit of like stipulation. I might lean one way. I'm looking at a couple of guys, but I think my heart is set. He was actually my second rated player on my shooting guards list. And I do think because of his untimely passing that he does get a little bit of a disrespect when it comes to legends in this game. I will be selecting with my wild card pick Drazen Petrovic, who is one of the better shooters of his generation in an NBA history, who unfortunately passed away at the age of 28 years old. And with that segue, I would also like to say that rest in peace to the great Bill Russell. 11 championships. No one else can do it like he did. One of the greatest teammates of all time. I can't believe we went an hour and 11 minutes into this podcast without mentioning just how much of a great player he was, and just more so of a human being as well. But I guess to get back on track a little bit, I will be selecting Drazen Petrovic with my wild card pick. 22 points a game the season before he passed away in a car accident. Rest in peace to the big guy, but Drazen Petrovic will be my choice.
Yeah, that's a fantastic pick. He was also up there on my highest shooting guards as well. Definitely a consideration for my next pick. Oh, you guys made this one tough on me. You guys basically took my top two guys. I get the last pick in this draft, and the two guys that I'm looking at averaged 14 points and 13.7 points a game, so it's close there.
You got a guy on your team, on your board that could team up with the big bro.
It's so true. I could take Marc Gasol here. I could, and it would be a good pick. He's one of the considerations. So I'll tell you guys that I'm considering right now, guys that I still have in the pool. I have Hedo Turkoglu.
Turkoglu. You had it right. Hedo Turkoglu.
Bogdan Bogdanovic is still out there if I needed some shooting. I have Marc Gasol, Rudy Gobert still out there. But all of that doesn't match up to the guy that I am going to take. A guy who is from the Dominican Republic. I'm going to go with Al Horford. Al Horford is going to be my wild card. Definitely. I mean, you just saw it with the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
Had a great prime with the Atlanta Hawks. I'm very confident in that last pick of Al Horford rounding it out somewhere where both generations can sort of get on the same page, where Al Horford is definitely one of the great role players, definitely plays a great veteran presence no matter what team he's on. But yeah, I'm going to round it out with Al Horford. I think that's a solid addition to my team.
I'm not going to lie.
You could have memed it. I would have given you respect for the Marc Gasol, Pau Gasol meme.
I know. I thought
the Spanish national team connection. I also had the idea of just selecting the entire Spanish national team. I was going to just take like Jose Calderon. I would have taken Rudy Fernandez. I could have done it. You know, I would. We're missing out on a couple of guys that I think deserve a little bit of respect here. We're missing out on one, Detlef Schrempf, Tony Kukoc, Boris Diaw. Just three names off the top of my head that I remember that I have on my list here. That Al Horford. All right.
Don't forget the legend Leonardo Barbosa either. He's in there too.
Barbosa. Almost took Thiago Splitter.
Luis Scola is another name. Don't forget. That's
Steven Adams.
Steven Adams.
Yeah, he was out there.
I'm not gonna lie. When I was hit with that bombshell that Karl Anthony Towns was not from the Dominican Republic, my mind instantly went to Al Horford. But I had to think about it. I was like, I don't know. Then I decided to choose. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a good pick. I mean, at his best, like the best version of Al Horford, he could do it all. He could shoot too. So I think it's a pretty good pick.
Yep. Well, fellas, another successful installment of Deep from 3. We'll be sure to get back to the drawing board and come up with another draft to do for the next episode, because I know the three of us love doing these. We love hearing the input from the people that are watching over at home or wherever you may be watching. Be sure to check out theathleteshub.org for more content from Gary, Isaiah, and myself, and so many more members. Everyone's putting in a lot of great work. Be sure to check out other podcasts that we have, such as Free Baseball, which I know Jake and Davis and Isaiah is occasionally part of the show as well. So be sure to check out
Tracy McGrady. Shout out Tracy McGrady followed Jake today. I'm a little upset that he followed the baseball podcast before he followed us. I don't quite get it, but go off. We like
Didn't T-Mac try to play baseball at one point? I remember watching some type of documentary or something on him where he was trying to.
I'm gonna look that up right now. T-Mac. So Tracy McGrady. He played. Oh, who is this? In 2014, he played in the Atlantic League as a pitcher. He lost both the games he played, and he had a 6.75 ERA. Unless that's a different Tracy McGrady.
No, I think that's it.
Yeah. No, that's him. Yeah. No. Yeah. No, he he tried. He did his best.
35 years old. I mean, hey, did he strike anybody out? Okay, no, he didn't. He walked 10 guys. He hit a batter, but hey, whatever. He did his best. He tried his best. But hey, T-Mac, if you're watching, because maybe that's what was happening, you were watching Jake earlier, we love you.
Best pitcher in MLB history. You heard it here first, Tracy McGrady.
Anyways, as we get off the rails completely, we bring it back home. We appreciate everybody watching from wherever you may be watching, and we'll be back for next week or the week prior. But yeah, be sure to continue to check us out and enjoy the rest of your night.
Peace out.
Peace.